Welcome back to Open BXRx. En Foco Inc. presents Asymptomatic, Systematic, a virtual exhibition creating a space for personal expression as each photographer navigates the experiences happening during COVID-19. Joining us now to share more are Oscar Rivera, curator, and Kasey-Lynn Rodriguez, aka Casinator, one of the featured artists. Welcome. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Of course. So the first thing I want to get into, of course, is learning how En Foco has navigated through COVID-19 and also remote work during this time.
Yeah, so it's been a challenge. We've been forced to work remotely. I just moved back to the city from 10 months in Puerto Rico. So figuring out how to get everyone on the same time schedule and transition all of our programmings into a digital format has been a difficult undertaking, but it's been one that's really allowed us to enrich our relationship to our communities and our artists.
Right. And getting into the newest exhibition, Asymptomatic, Systematic, can you just tell us more about that? You're the curator and how you assemble the artists that are behind it as well.
Of course. So Asymptomatic, Systematic is actually a companion piece to the Pandemic Response Forum that I organized in the latest issue of Nueva Luz. So I tapped 10 artists from our pool from the fellowship. Everyone that applies, we keep those records, and whenever we need to put our ear to the streets, those are the first people we go to. We've actually had my eye on Kasey for a very long time. And so I reached out and asked a couple people to share their experiences in navigating the pandemic with me, and their statements were published in the issue, and their work was then transferred over to the sister exhibition.
Right. And Kasey, we're glad to have you here, and I'm glad that we have this open space to discuss your pieces that you have in this series. Can you tell us about the pieces that you presented to the show? They explore motherhood during a pandemic. I just want to learn more about it. The pictures are beautiful, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is elegance. But then, of course, you have a mask on, so that just completely changes the story.
Yeah. So with the pandemic, I think it really brought like my level of motherhood kind of extra. Now it was more, when I first had my son, it was kind of like, okay, I can't have a lot of people around him because he's brand new and all these other things. And I was also dealing with postpartum depression also. So it was a kind of a lot. And then I finally was able to move out of that a little bit and get back into a routine around December, January. And then with having the pandemic hit, everything just kind of then stopped. So the groove that I got back into of going back to church and kind of getting back into who I was before being a mom kind of got halted again. And then it was like, okay, now we have to stay home. Now I have to be extra careful with the newborn, like all these other things. Because when the pandemic hit, he was about 5 months, going on to 6 months. Wow. Now he's going to be 10 months this weekend. So it's kind of like, all this time, kind of, it just changed. I never thought that the first year of being a mom was going to be so scary. I think, I mean, parenthood already, being a mom, all these things are kind of already kind of like frightening a little bit your first year, but it took a big toll on me. So creating this art kind of brought in a new element to like everything that was kind of happening. So when I got the email about the open call, I was like, oh, great. Now I can kind of put together this idea that I had and everything. And we just set it up at home and we just went there from there. And the thing, too, is that it was inspired by Victorian era portraits. So the whole idea about family dynamics and things like that, who are you being quarantined with? All these other kind of things kind of were playing into what I produced. And I think also because my family, like my aunt, my mom, were essential workers. So it was really hard for me too, having like them home and helping me with the baby and things like that, or them, not having to work as much or hours being not as crazy. All these other things just kind of changed dramatically. So I feel like incorporating that whole family dynamic and things like that as well. And then including the masks where now this is how we have to go out. Now we have to be careful. Like, do you have gloves? Do you have this? And it's kind of like, I would have never thought that I would have to have thought about these things when I had my son in September and how everything played out this year.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that and giving us a glimpse into your life through COVID-19, which is something that a lot of us aren't aware of, like
Yeah.
I'm not a mom of a baby that was just born, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I see in the photos that you gave us that story. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Oscar, you also have work in the show as well as being a curator. Can you tell me just about digital exhibitions and also how you offer a space for escape from the comfort of our homes during this time, and about your work on Notes on Paradise? That's the name of your series in this show.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, digital exhibitions, they offer us an opportunity to put together a package and deliver it right into the homes of our communities and our artists. And it gives us a wider audience. It allows us to highlight more artists for longer times. We get to engage with people in a different but equally as meaningful way. So it's been a really enriching experience for me. In regards to my series, Notes on Paradise, it was born out of my longing and desire for community and family and finding a home. I moved to Puerto Rico in September. I got married. I figured we're going to start fresh. It's going to be great. I was not prepared for the realities of a post-Maria Puerto Rico and what that meant in regards to infrastructure, politics, just dealing with that. And then we had sort of every 3 months, a new new challenger stepped into the ring. Earthquakes, the pandemic, anti-LGBT legislation. So there was a lot of things for me to unpack.
Yeah.
Externally, not even including my own personal challenges. So Notes on Paradise is my way of navigating through all of that, and it's purposefully black and white to combat the romantic idea of the Caribbean.
Right.
Every time we think of Puerto Rico, we see Viejo San Juan, we see the bright colors, the flowers, a rich environment, and that isn't always necessarily the reality. And it certainly wasn't for me. So that's what Notes on Paradise is.
Thank you so much, Oscar. I was just going to ask about the black and white, if it was intentional, and apparently, yes, of course. And I just wanted to say they were like hauntingly beautiful to look at. So thank you for that. The next thing I wanted to explore is, of course, the En Foco Photography Fellowship, and this year's 2020 Fellowship winners featured works in Your Reflection, This Memory. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So it was curated by Julia Mata, and this cohort of fellows is actually one of my favorites. We've got 10 very important artists delving into really deep and thematically rich work. Oftentimes our fellows, they are really hyper focused on communities that are sort of pushed to the outer edges of societal focus. And some of my favorites from this cohort are Odette Chavez-Mayo and Antonio Johnson, who are both both photographing incarcerated folks. And I think that it's super important to really provide rich context for those communities and really tackle a lot of, I guess, the stereotypes and the notions that come with incarceration. And I think that it's really important for us to show work that engages with all communities at all times, especially when we're living in this moment that we're living in. The show was originally scheduled to be hosted at Bronx Art Space, and then the world ended and we had to transition it to our website. But I think that helped it a little bit. We're providing free access to really high quality arts, and it's not bound by physical space anymore, and it can go wherever it needs to go.
Right. Thank you for that. Now that we're talking about that, the bounds of social media and how we can extend our work and be creative online. Kasey, you're also photographing marches here in the Bronx. Can you discuss the power of media and photography in movements like today with the Black Lives Matter movement and civil unrest in our borough?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my work has always kind of been the documenting of, I guess, everything community-wise, but also a lot of the social things that people don't realize happens in the Bronx, or what is generalized in the Bronx too, about like how we live here. It's a little bit not as nicer as it would be in other boroughs, or, you know, people don't realize that still the Bronx is like one of the poorest congressional areas, like boroughs, you know what I mean? So I think my work has always been to uplift the Bronx despite these stereotypes and things like that. And I feel like when I went, I mean, I photographed the protest at Hunts Point. That's in my neighborhood directly. So I know my neighborhood gets affected by this. And the fact that the community came together to go to the Hunts Point train station and was able to chant out the names of George Floyd and all those who were killed by police brutality and everything as well. And, you know, it's a thing of finally communities are able to like come together in ways that it's not like selfish things or anything like that. But I mean it more in the sense of coming together to be able to fight for one thing that we can all agree on actually happens to us in our own neighborhoods and in our own backyard. So being able to be a part of that was amazing. It was very surreal to be surrounded by young people who were also talking in the crowd about how their lives have been affected by police violence or violence in general. And it's insane the fact that even our younger, like the youth, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm only 28, but hearing somebody who was about 14, 15 years old talking about how she has seen somebody, you know, get hurt in front of her or die, or there's a bunch of things that it's like, wow, like you don't realize that this also affects so many other people in so many different ways. We all have different experiences. So I feel like being able to photograph this and being a part of it gives them a voice. It doesn't put me in the focus of what's happening. It puts them more in the focus. Whereas sometimes, like, or if I wasn't around to photograph that, who do we know that would be able to photograph it and tell this story of what's going on in our own neighborhood? I commend my friends who are photographers also, who are literally going out every day and doing the other marches and the protesting and stuff like that. And I also feel like too, if I didn't have my son and stuff like that, I would be doing so much more, you know? But the thing is that being able to, I guess, put it out there, and social media and media in general is so powerful because you can voice your opinion. You can say, you know, this is what I was told, this is what I learned, this is what I heard, and stuff like that, instead of just kind of giving a baseless opinion or something that, you know, anybody could just say the sky is green, you know what I'm saying? And then people will be like, really? Like, I didn't know, you know what I mean? So it kind of puts it out there of like, you know what, this is the stuff that I heard. We have to listen to the people in our communities, and these are the things that are going on. And especially with Black Lives Matter and all these protesting that are happening is needed. It's like super important to have and to hear these stories and to know what is going on, because we can't just be in a bubble, you know what I mean? So photographing this, being out there and everything has been super important, and so emotionally connecting too, in a way, because it's finally like bringing out so much more than just, you know, so much more than just what we're hearing on our news or whatever. It's actually knowing and seeing and being a part of something that's bigger than us, you know?
Yep. Because a lot, if not all of the protests that were organized in the Bronx were peaceful, you know, and then one of them turned into violent because the police attacked the organizers and the protesters. But it's important to have photographers like you, Kasey, who are on the forefront and also capturing the true story. So thank you. Just to wrap up, I wish I had more time with you both. But Oscar, I also wanted to discuss how people can get in touch with En Foco, view the virtual exhibition, and donate and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So you can reach us at enfoco.org. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us on Instagram at En Foco Inc. _ or info@enfoco.org. You can also find the latest issue of Nova Luz that has the pandemic response forum on enfoco.org.
Thank you both so much for your time today, and congratulations on the opening reception.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Folks, that's all for our show today. Thank you for tuning into BXRX. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your family safety and wellness now and always. Until next time.